On tonight's North Fulton Prep Rally, it's officially fall football, and the games get more important every week. In region action, the Alpharetta program continues to grow, and they get fatter on Northview. We've got that ball game. GAC is cruising toward the playoffs. We'll see if Blessed Trinity is a match. And Little Kings Ridge gets on the tube tonight, taking on Pace Academy in single A ball. So we've got recaps and analysis of the other North Fulton schools. So throw down with NFPR. It's coming up right now.
Comcast presents your source for North Fulton High School sports. This is North Fulton Prep Rally.
Hello and welcome to another edition of North Fulton Prep Rally, your weekly high school program featuring the very best action from North Fulton High Schools. I'm Brian Wise, joined by Nathan Shutter year-round on Comcast Channel 25. Catch us here weeknights at 6, 8, and 10 p.m. And Nathan, after past week's games, we are halfway through the season for most of the schools. Let's take a look at Week 5 action as we get to our keys to the weekend.
Yeah, Alpharetta defeated Northview 40-17 in both teams' first region matchup. Raiders now 1-0 in region play. Big games from Jalen Simmons and Joshua Dobbs in this one.
And Ridge can't keep pace.
Kings Ridge falls to Pace Academy 22-13. Therese Miller rushed for 119 yards and a touchdown for Kings Ridge.
And the Titans fall on the road.
Yeah, Blessed Trinity loses to GAC 42-28. GAC racked up 450 yards of total offense. Titans now 1-3 on this very young season.
All right, well, let's get on to the highlights, and we start things off at Northview, where the Titans were looking to rebound after last week's loss as they began region play against a familiar foe in the Alpharetta Raiders. Early first quarter, the Titans defense would step up with a huge interception here by Connor Redmond off the Raider tipped ball, setting up the Titan offense with great field position. It would take a couple of plays later. Evan Jacks drops back and finds Austin Rose over the middle, who breaks a tackle and fights his way inside the Raider 20-yard line.
The Titans would take an early 3-0 lead on this 29-yard field goal attempt by Peyton Erickson. The Titans look to have all the momentum.
The Raiders would answer, however, on their next drive as Joshua Dobbs finds Carlos Burse in the flat. Burse, using that big body, stretches his way into the end zone. Raiders now up 7-3. And on the ensuing kickoffs, the Titans would turn the ball over, setting up this 1-yard touchdown run by Jalen Simmons, giving Alpharetta a 14-3 lead.
Alpharetta will get the ball back and make the most of it. Jalen Simmons again from a yard out. Raiders have a commanding 21-3 lead.
And the Titans would look to cut that lead down at the half as Evan Jacks, with the quarterback keeper, breaks through, weaves his way down the field before having the ball knocked out of his hands on a great defensive play by Vaughn Robinson, keeping the Raiders' lead at half 21-3. Third quarter, Titans driving. Jacks again with the keeper, straight up the middle from 14 yards out, and scores, cutting the Raider lead to 21-10. And then on the next Raiders possession, Dobbs would pitch it out to Simmons. Simmons is going to get around the edge and into the end zone, and he's going to give the Raiders a nice 28-10 lead.
The Raiders with the ball, fourth quarter, 4th and goal from the 1. And great defensive stop by the Titans, forcing the Raiders to give the ball back to Northview.
And Northview would then take over from there. 2 plays later, the Raider defense would step up and stop Jacks in the end zone for the safety, and the Raiders now lead by 20, 30-10. After the free kick, the Raiders would drive downfield again. This time, Dobbs finds Daniel Clements in the end zone for the score. Alpharetta would go on to win this one, 40-17. And Nathan, Alpharetta was the only team in North Fulton to win in Region 6. How do you see them stacking up against the rest of the two Forsyth teams? Excuse me.
Well, we're going to find out real quick because Alpharetta plays host to West Forsyth this Friday night, and West Forsyth put up a big number against Centennial this past Friday night. So it should be an interesting game. I'm very impressed with the way the Alpharetta offense has played so far this season. Jalen Simmons, another big game, 3 touchdowns in this one, 140-plus yards. Joshua Dobbs went over 300 yards passing, had a couple touchdowns himself. I really like the balance. It's hard for a defense to key in on one person on Alpharetta because they're both doing it. Dobbs on the ground, or Dobbs through the air, Jalen Simmons on the ground, and the Alpharetta defense playing pretty good so far this year, and if they can keep it up, this Alpharetta team can go pretty far.
Yeah, the Alpharetta team looks very impressive. All right, let's get back to the highlights now. And the Blessed Trinity Titans were looking to improve to 2-2 on the season this past Friday night. The task would be a great one, though, as they head on the road to number 3 ranked Greater Atlanta Christian. GA's first quarter, after a long punt, the return from Greater Atlanta Christian quarterback David McIntyre keeps it, and the Spartans are up 7-0. Second quarter now, and it's McTeer again taking it all the way to the 1-yard line.
Jared Chapel checks in at quarterback. He'll plunge forward for the score. It's 14-0 GAC.
Still in the second when the Titans get going. Spencer McMahons hits John Davis with the short screen, but Davis stays on his feet. He's going to race down the sidelines and finally be taken down by Chris Smith near the 30. The Titans now go to the ground as Sam Roberts breaks a few tackles and wins the foot race to the end zone, and Blessed Trinity trails by 7.
Later, it's Kyle Scales getting the rock, and he will find a seam, taking it all the way in. GAC now leads 21-7.
Blessed Trinity still fighting this time with the play action as Spencer McMahon floats one over to Sam Roberts, and he takes it all the way to the 12-yard line. And McMahon goes to the air again, finding Chris Dorr in the end zone, and the Titans cut GAC's lead to 7.
Now to the third quarter, it's Kyle Scales finding a hole, and he's gone. Sprinting all the way for the 6, and it's 28-14 GAC.
Now later in the fourth, leading 35-14, the Spartans go to Delano Spencer, who muscles his way to the 1-yard line, setting up another scoring drive by Jared Chappelle, extending GAC's lead by 21.
But the Titans aren't giving up yet. McManus drops back and finds Chris Dorr, who takes it into the end zone.
Later, it's McMahon's again hooking up with Dorr in the end zone, but the Spartans would conquer the Titans in this one, 42-28. And Nathan, it's been a tough start for Blessed Trinity. What seems to be the problem this year?
A very, very tough schedule for Blessed Trinity. Only 1-3 on the season, but the teams they played, Buford, GAC, and Grady, are combined 15-0 on the year. So some very tough teams they played so far. They have yet to play a sub-region game, and that's what's most important, winning your sub-region games. That gets started this week against Westminster. This team is fine. They've been tested. Hopefully that test helps them a better team as we get into sub-region play, and they'll be just fine once we start doing there.
Yeah, this is not normal for them. More highlights now as we check in on a Region 5 Single A matchup with the Kings Ridge Tigers, who are trying to stay unbeaten in the region. They would have to do so on the road at Pace Academy. We picked this game up early in the first quarter. The Knights are looking to jump on the scoreboard first. The give is to Denzel Franklin, who scoots down the sideline, breaks a couple of tackles, and fights his way down to the 30-yard line. And then a couple of plays later, Kevin Johnson would complete a pass over the middle, this time to Glenn Harris, but the play would be short of the first down.
Setting up this field goal attempt by Alex Nash, and the Pace Academy Knights would have an early 3-0 lead.
Kings Ridge would get in on the scoring late in the second quarter as the handoff goes to the freshman Therese Miller. Miller shoots up the middle, and a 46-yard touchdown run for Miller gives the Tigers a 7-3 lead. That would be the only touchdown of the night for the Tigers, as the Knights would then get a nice run here from Kevin Johnson.
The story of the night was the play of this man, Denzel Franklin. He would get the ball here and collect a nice run. Franklin would end the night with 330 yards rushing.
And the Tigers would give it their best effort as freshman quarterback Bailey Miller would be stopped here, and the Tigers would fall to the Knights 22-13. And Nathan, that was a close loss for the Tigers. So what was the difference in this one?
Big plays and Denzel Franklin, 330 yards on 19 carries for Mr. Franklin, and he had big touchdown runs of 75 yards, 2 of them for 62 yards, and you just can't give up those kind of big plays in a game like this. All 3 touchdowns, big time for Pace Academy. Really like the way Kings Ridge played. Other than that, if you can limit the big plays of the other team, and they scored a couple of themselves. Big game for Therese Miller at running back for Kings Ridge. I like where this team's heading, though.
Yeah, big night, though, for Franklin. Time now to recap the rest of the Week 5 football action from around North Fulton, and we start things off with the John Creek Gladiators trying to get one game closer to the Region 7 title.
Yeah, they improved to 5-0 on the season, defeating Creekview 41-14. This game was actually tied 7-7 in the first quarter before the Gladiator offense exploded for 34 unanswered. Johns Creek had over 400 yards of offense in this game. Special teams doing their job. Kyle Fowler hit 2 field goals in this one, and then the usual suspects on offense.
And Chattahoochee
defeating Northwest Whitfield 28-13. Cougars actually trailed 13-7 at the half. Justin Jackson had 2 big punt returns in the second half. The first 45 yards for a touchdown, then added a 30-yarder that set up the next touchdown. Hooch ran the Wildcat formation with running backs Chase Nelson and CJ Leggett. I bet we see a lot of that this week against Johns Creek.
How about Wesleyan?
Getting another good win, defeating Fellowship Christian 14-7. They fell behind 7-0 in the second quarter. A fake punt was the big play on that drive. Wolves tied it up with under a minute to play before the half. Xander Yost scored the game winner in the fourth quarter. Sunderman, the quarterback, finished with 14 of 20 for 109 yards.
And Centennial
lost to West Forsyth 70-20. Wolverines look to be a serious contender for the Region 6 title. West Forsyth didn't punt the ball one time. Offense exploded for 541 yards in this one. A.J. Erdely was phenomenal, going 11 for 14, 168 yards and 4 touchdowns for West Forsyth. West Forsyth led 42-6 at the half.
Ooh, and Roswell.
A tough loss for Roswell, losing to North Forsyth 24-21, their 5th straight loss of the season. Heading into the bye week, North Forsyth had a 98-yard touchdown drive over the last 5 minutes of the game for the go-ahead touchdown. Roswell running back Corey Wilson, who was filling in for Andrew Quatang, 27 carries, 236 yards, and 3 touchdowns. A great performance by him. Penalties the difference in this one. Roswell, 10 of them for 100 yards.
Yeah, Nathan, Roswell won the region last year. What's going on with this team in 2011?
Well, a lot of inexperience. A lot of players they had to replace off last year's team. They had a tough schedule. But hey, the good news is 0-5, but only 0-1 in the region. You run the table, you go 4-0 the rest of the way. You're at least the number 2 seed in this region at the worst case scenario. So they have to take this bye week, regroup, get better, and come out in 2 weeks and fight hard.
All right, now I'm going to test you here. The big game this week, Johns Creek and Chattahoochee. What are some keys to this game?
Well, the big key is Johns Creek. Can you overcome, your big brother in the neighborhood, Chattahoochee, the defending state champs? I think that Johns Creek is probably the favorite going in this game, just given the way they've played so far this season. But Chattahoochee has to have the mental edge. They are the defending state champions. I think it's going to be a close game, come down to a field goal. Maybe Fowler for Johns Creek can break his 53-yard field goal record that he set earlier this year, hit a big 55-yarder for the winner for Johns Creek.
Yeah, well, we'll see. It's always fun when the rivalries get going. And all right, though, that's going to do it for this week. You can catch us back here on Comcast Channel 25 next week for game highlights and features. And be sure to like North Fulton Prep Rally on Facebook, and you can also follow us on Twitter to see what's happening on the show. For Nathan Shutter, I'm Brian Wise, and that's going to do it for this week. We'll see you under the lights.
Grab some wood there, bub.